Hi everyone, how are you? Let's see if this video actually turns out okay. So this is just a test, but I was just doing an interview with a magazine, and I'm like, it's exciting. Anyways, the video was on censorship online, my cousin's book, Cuban communism, the fall of Cuba, and education. And I didn't realize how much I love doing interviews and the interaction of doing the interviews. So I just wanted to come on live and just give you a little bit of some things that we talked about. And we talked about censorship as far as Facebook. Facebook disabled my account because I'm a paralegal who likes discussing ideas, and I'm pretty open about giving my views and expressing my views. And I don't agree that Facebook should be censoring. I think that it's a blatant disrespect for our freedoms. And not only that, but when I was discovering, I created a pleading. Hi everyone, how are you? I'm back. I created a pleading to kind of sue Facebook, and I'm still deciding whether I'm going to sue them. Because, it will take a long time. But if you want to let me know that I should sue them, please comment below and let me know if you agree that I should sue them as a pro sayer. I believe I'm a little bit smarter than a lot of people, and I could do it myself, but it takes a lot of work. So let's go on and let me let you know why I got disabled. So I had this group, and I grew it to 20,000 people. And in the group, Facebook said that there was harmful content. I mean, there was unlawful activity going on in my group, and that if I don't monitor my group, that they reserve the right to cancel me completely. So I'm like, what's harmful about a Colorado group for marketplace? I don't see anything harmful in my group. And then in July 3rd, I kind of posted that I did not like the narrative of BLM. And guess what? I got disabled right instantly. So this brought me to looking through my old constitutional law 1 and 2 information studies that I did. I got an A in con law 1 and 2 as an undergrad. And I think I'd get an A if I went to law school now, because I really know the principles quite well and the history behind constitutional law better than I did when I went through it. But anyways, it's really concerning because when I was doing this pleadings research, I discovered that many of the people in the oversight board on Facebook are or were governmental official people. So he has people that are working with the government in his oversight board. So it's quite concerning that Trump got permanently banned because it just tells you something about government, Facebook, and the powers that be. So first of all, I want to just let you know, I am an interpretivist and a strict constructionist. I believe that judicial review and opinion should follow the original intention of the framers of the Constitution. And I really do hope that Facebook is sued by Trump. I really do hope that Trump has a favorable case because all our freedoms are at stake. I love the Constitution, and I just want to let you know that. I love our American system. I do not consider America to be racist. I am a Latina. I believe that the justices should discern what the framers thought about the questions under consideration and following the intentions in resolving cases before them. But to gauge the intent of the framers on the application of principles to specific contemporary questions accurately, one must understand and know history. I also believe that to ratify the Constitution, many had to agree to disagree, and they had to cloak their differences in generalities. Indeed, what is clear to me is that the framers intended for us to be free. We need to ground our nation firmly around the natural law principles and which are governed by God. I do not believe for 1 minute that determining intent is a subjective enterprise. And today we can read many of our framers' content in their speeches, resolutions, votes to learn what the framers intended. So I believe, like Madison, that you should read the Constitution literally and apply a hard rule construction. So what I'm interested in is that because of internet censorship, we need to be able to protect our American freedoms online as well as offline. Online is an extension of your person. I mean, that's you. And it's a great way to connect with your representatives. And we need to define whether the internet is a public square, which I believe it is. And so where people can discuss, connect, and speak freely about their ideas. And I believe it is. I believe that online businesses, just like real world businesses that you go, local businesses in your own state or county or city, require a certain level of tolerance for speech. You can't just ban people or report people or censure people willy-nilly. And I believe that the platforms that create the square need to be viewed in the same lens as a local business, open to the public. Because if I walk into a bank and I start chit-chatting with the local banker about, I don't know, politics, we're just making conversation. You can't just kick somebody out just because you don't agree or have or with their unfavorable idea. That would be bad practice and a lousy customer service. There are certain behaviors that businesses must tolerate to stay in business, and those behaviors are governed by natural law, which emanates from the Creator. Whatever Creator you believe in, I believe in God. There is only one God. I can indeed be it can be very hard to understand the original ancient document. But when done correctly, it requires us to sift through a large amount of reading. So I love reading. I don't know about you. That's why I have this channel. because I like to share children's books, and I love to impact children. But when Facebook disabled my account arbitrarily and capriciously, I found the opportunity to review my constitutional knowledge of freedom of speech, privacy, and contract law, and strengthen my understanding, perhaps to sue them. But Section 230 of the Decency Act puts a wedge on our individual rights to take online platforms to court. This is concern that many of the concern is that many of these big tech companies are working with and for the government. And as I already told you in my research, many of the people in the oversight board of Facebook work for or worked for the government. So I'm wondering if there is a shadow government that is censoring people and speech. In the aftermath of World War II, so when did the court start defining free speech? It started in the aftermath of World War II. The court was forced to articulate the standard for defining the scope of constitutionally protected speech and press. Blackstone's common law principles govern the First Amendment guarantees of free speech, but gradually members of the court began developing the constitutional principles that would define the scope of protected speech and press. In 1936, Grosjean versus American Press Code, Justice George Sutherland noted that constitutional principles, not English common law, govern the scope of protected speech. So what are the principles behind the First Amendment right? Our First Amendment rights are for us to be, it's a protection on us from the government, from government imposition and interference in our lives. And so the First Amendment is our freedom to discuss ideas that might be unfavorable to you, for our freedoms to be able to speak against some idea or some precept or some official. He said, this Justice Sutherland said, the framers didn't intend to adopt a narrow view of the First Amendment reflected in the English common law. It took decades for the court to break away from the common law. Finally, the court developed a standard of review of freedom of speech and press in the case Shenek versus United States, 1919. And I think that to balance big tech's ambitions and protect the free amendment freedoms, their actions should be weighed against society's right to self-preservation online and balancing the First Amendment freedoms against contractual restrictions. Zuckerberg, Dorsey, Google, YouTube, LinkedIn should all be held accountable because LinkedIn has been sort of tweaking their policy too. So before they actually do anything grave, something should be done. For being subversive organizations established in the Internal Securities Act of 1950. Their intention is clearly to bring about an overthrow of our free government, free American government, as speedily as circumstances could permit. Justice Warren gave a per curiam opinion in Brandenburg case 1969, upheld convictions for the so-called subversion speech and activities advocating unpopular political doctrines. So, from my understanding, I believe that Facebook, why I didn't really explain, I believe that all these Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes was a big Justice back then, and he indicated that the test for defining the scope of constitutionally protected speech is the clear and present danger test, whether the words used are used in such circumstances and are of such nature as to create a clear and present danger that will bring about subversive evils that Congress has a right to prevent. And right now, in my opinion, I believe that the government has the burden of proof. Even if I were to sue the government, I believe that the burden of proof is on the government to show that the speech was such that it was like clearly a clear and present danger. But Holmes retreated and based his opinion in this case on the old common law presumption of reasonableness of legislation and whether the prescribed speech had a bad tendency. In other words, whether the statements contained in communication had natural tendency to produce the forbidden consequences. This is the standard of review in the Espionage Act. Holmes finally broke with the majority over the clear and present danger test as an alternative to the tendency test in 1919 case, Abrams versus United States. In his dissent with Justice Brandeis, Holmes proclaimed only the emergency that makes it immediately dangerous to leave the correction of evil counsels to time warrant, making any exception to sweeping command. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. The dissent established the foundation for the evolution of the most famous judicial approach to the First Amendment. In 1920, the court continued to hold that the First Amendment did not protect speech, but then in Gitlow versus People, 1925, Justice Sanford reaffirmed the traditional common law principles governing punishment of provocative speech. Is big tech upholding the traditional English common law as a standard for abridging speech? What are they doing? And who is behind the Facebook curtain? Facebook contradicts itself by saying that we allow freedom of expression, but we will punish speech. You can't just express any view. That's not allowed on Facebook. Oh, no. It's our view or the highway. I find this appalling to our constitutional values. Facebook is acting as the state and controlling utterances that involve danger to the online public's peace and security of Facebook state. I believe that the First Amendment forbids restrictions short of demonstrating an imminent, clear, and present danger. And as Brandeis said, only an emergency can justify repression. There is no emergency on Facebook that Facebook needs to restrict. And the president, that's just awful and disrespectful and rude that Facebook decided to permanently ban President Trump. Hello! That is rude. That is rude. Disrespectful. The scope of the First Amendment expanded in 1940 as some justices pushed a more libertarian approach and claiming it enjoyed a preferred position. So freedom of expression is a preferred position, foreclosing the possibility of upholding any restriction to free speech and press. The First Amendment is not confined to safeguarding the freedom of speech and freedom of religion against discriminatory attempts to wipe them out. So I believe that Facebook is discriminating against who has a right to speech. So if Facebook is banning Republicans, for example, that's a discrimination. And they have a discrimination case right there against them. On the contrary, by virtue of the First and the Fourth Amendment, the Constitution has put those freedoms in a preferred position. Like the 1940s and the 1950s, political passions have swept the country with dire warnings about fascism and communism. But unlike those times, I believe there is a more imminent danger lurching towards communism. Fidel Castro's Cuba was presaged by Max Alvarez's opinion in the GOP convention just this year. The threat of communism is substantially imminent today, considerably more significant than in 1940 and through 1950, and justifies congressional action against big online tech. Their power to restrict speech, even harmful conduct, cannot justify restrictions upon speech because they are not civil servants elected to Congress by the people of the United States. And even Congress cannot restrict speech. And if they do, they have to clearly state whether it was a clear and present danger. It was an emergency. There is no emergency. When the effects of the terms of a contract, like the ones you have with Facebook, we have a contract as users with Facebook, okay, upon the exercise of First Amendment freedom are relatively small and the public interest to be protected is substantial, it's obvious that rigid test requiring a showing of imminent danger to the national security is brilliant against big tech tyranny, but absurd otherwise. Facebook has, what I'm saying here is that Facebook has no right to abridge the free speech of its users. They have no right to decide whether something is an imminent danger to the national security. They have no right to tell me that I cannot give you an idea or express my concerns on this online platform, which all of our representatives are on, and we can actually have direct access to them. So I really do think, and I hope that Trump succeeds in suing Facebook. And in my next video, I will talk about my cousin's book. I am almost done reading it, and so I will give you my the lowdown in English. I will be republishing the book in English, so to give you a benefit of learning about the fall of Castro's regime. I mean, the fall of Cuba and the rise of Castro's regime. So stay tuned, and please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you love me and you want to see more of me, please shop for books for your kids over at k4699.myubam.com, and let me know what you think of our books. Osborne Books and More is here for your kids, and they want your kids to be literate and smart and fly away with books and learn. They want them to be highly literate. Anyways, I love my company. I love Osborne. I have so many books. I use Osborne Books and More in my curriculum to supplement what we're doing. So I highly recommend them. And please go to k4699.myubam.com. Thanks.